Tonight, we have a key matchup between FDR and George W. Bush. Welcome to Presidential Smackdown Week 3. Hey guys, welcome back to the Mr. R Show and Presidential Smackdown Week 3. Ashton, it's been a crazy season so far. We have a lot of good games on the docket today, all leading up to our main game between, that you've heard on the intro, FDR, the wheelchair president, against W. Bush, the Hurricane Katrina president. Ashton, what are your thoughts before we kick in this week of our key matchup tonight?
So, Andy, as people will see, we'll break down the seeding and kind of how the conferences are breaking out so far. But I felt like we had more runaway wins this week than last week. A lot of the people, at least in the Democratic conference, that's the one I primarily simulate. Uh, there are a lot more candidates that just took a lead and kept it the whole race. There wasn't a lot of back and forth like typically we see. So it was a less competitive week, but in total the conferences are getting way more competitive. We had a lot of undefeated people go down this week. So I'm interested to see between two people who are struggling to get wins right now between FDR and W, see how they do, and if one of them can pull off a win they desperately need going into week 4. All right, Andy. So let's go ahead and go into our first game with Bill Clinton as the home team facing off the peanut farmer and Jimmy Carter. And I didn't know exactly how Jimmy Carter would perform again as the away opponent, but Jimmy Carter right now is undefeated as a away candidate. He does really perform well, and he ends up pulling off a really solid win. And as people can see, he kind of holds the lead the entire time and just builds off of his base. I thought it could have cascaded a little bit more, but Bill Clinton kind of tried to keep it competitive. He picked off some red states, but overall, Jimmy Carter just holds the lead and pulls off a really, really good win.
It's interesting to me, Ashton, that we see that Jimmy Carter's undefeated so far through 3 weeks. He's 2-0.
Hmm.
And he's doing so well when we flip him to become that away Republican candidate. So he's going to be a force that if he's good as his home team and as his away team, he's going to cause havoc in that DNC South. But a very solid win for Jimmy Carter in week 3.
Hmm. Next is Andrew Jackson versus Teddy. Um, Teddy Roosevelt. I really expected Teddy to win this. Andrew Jackson, I think both me and you can say has underperformed our expectations going into this matchup. I mean, he's in a tough, tough division against Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and he's had some of the not the worst defeats, but he's had pretty bad. His week 1 defeat was pretty bad. He pulls off a very, very close victory against Teddy Roosevelt. It was 250 to 288. Um, yeah, and I'm just really shocked. Andrew Jackson pulled it off. He kept the South really solidly in contention the whole time, and Teddy just couldn't win some of those critical states. He pulled off a few good wins like Ohio, but that isn't enough to carry you the whole country.
Yeah, Ashton, Theodore Roosevelt was the leading favorite in this matchup. He was undefeated going into this game, and Andrew Jackson comes in here. He cancels out the noise that he's been hearing the past couple of weeks with how good Theodore Roosevelt is, and he beats him as a Democratic candidate, his home candidate. He beats the Republican in those crucial Southeast states he needed to win. It's not the biggest margin of victory, but all you need is a victory. Andrew Jackson comes in here, gets the job done, and he keeps his hopes alive for this presidential smackdown.
Hmm. So next we have two candidates who are both losers in their respective first battles. Both are 0-1 going into this matchup, and it was the home candidate Woodrow Wilson against LBJ, the away candidate, and LBJ struggled once again very mightily. He got just destroyed. Like, LBJ is not performing as a weight candidate at all. He struggles mightily. He loses in a landslide. Um, 364 to 174. That is the second most for a victory we've had so far. The most going to George H.W. Bush, getting like 400 in week one, I believe. Um, so just a devastating loss, and as people can see, it's just LBJ never had a chance the whole match.
LBJ has really struggled so far, and going through these 3 weeks, hasn't hit over 200 electoral votes at all. He had a bye last week, hoping that maybe he could turn this around, regain his confidence, and go into a game against Wilson, who lost and didn't really do that well in his matchup last week. That this didn't happen. Wilson comes in this matchup and destroys LBJ, even worse than LBJ's loss in week one against Obama. So it's crazy to see that LBJ is struggling so bad. I didn't predict that, week one that he was going to be maybe the worst candidate so far according to the standings. Maybe Taft, you can debate that, but LBJ's look bad and he needs a win next week if he wants any chance to be competitive.
All right, Andy, let's go ahead and go to the closest match of this week. We had a lot of candidates just hold on to the leads and win, but the one that was going back and forth the whole time, duking it, was Ford versus Obama, and I was really surprised by how close Ford kept us. Obama had one of the most impressive wins so far, and in his week one matchup, and I honestly thought Obama was going to win this comfortably, and Ford, to his credit, Ford was duking and slugging it, and it came down to those last few states, and Ford just ended up not being able to pull out a West Coast win in one of those swing states like Nevada, stuff like that. He could have definitely pulled off this win. Obama pulls out a squeaker, 275 to 263, and Obama, he just ends up improving his record.
Yeah, Ashton, Obama's 2-1, but he's still getting that DNC West number one right now. So we both kind of predicted him doing pretty well at the start of the series. He has all the intangibles you need for a candidate, especially in this simulation style matchup series. But you look at Gerald Ford, I know he's 1-2 right now, but his record does not kind of define how good he's been performing. He got a solid one against Reagan. He kept it competitive the next week, and he really kept it close with Obama. So he's playing a lot better than his record shows, and he could still swing some of these wins to go in his favor. That's a few electoral votes either way, and still be a solid candidate. But good win for Obama, and that wraps up your Democratic games. So let's go ahead and get into my Republican simulations games, kicking it off with good old big boy Taft at home against George H.W. Bush in week three. So, Ashton, it really wasn't really competitive. At first, you kind of got a sense that it might be, but after, 3 or 4 weeks, HW just blew it out of the water. He ends up winning 352 to 186. He wins almost every single swing state that he needs to do. He doesn't win them all, but basically comes into the swing states that he does need, dominates, gets the jobs done, and he continues to improve in this series.
Yeah, Andy, so far, George, Papa Bush has had a roller coaster season. Week one, having a really, really tough loss, only getting 135 electoral votes, to only go on in week two and now week three, have solid 300 plus electoral vote victories. I feel like he has rebounded off of his week one slump and pulling off a very, very, I don't want to say super impressive because I feel like Taft is just struggling. So I don't know how much of that is Taft just sucking and how much of it is George H.W. Bush just being really good.
100% Ashton Taft is a bad candidate. One of the worst we've had so far in this simulation. Moving right along, Ashton, to the best non political cross game of the week. So, same party game. And that is the two Republican powerhouses. That is Lincoln on the road against Ronald Reagan. So, a huge matchup in determining how this Republican Party is going to shape out, going deeper and deeper into the series. Kicking off this game, it was 50-50 the whole time. Reagan, being from California, helped him keep California close. competitive. He didn't win California. It's super hard to win California as a Republican. I mean, it really is. You have to put a lot of time and effort into it. And he did not. He went off into the other swing states to get some of those victories. It was 50-50. I know that like the popular count up on the top of the screen was back 46-46, 47-47. So it was like neck and neck all the way through. Ending up this game, Reagan pulls out a good victory, 325 to 213. And that seems like a blowout, but it was really close the whole game. And this Reagan picked off those swing states and those 50-50 states obviously more than Lincoln did. You can tell it was close because you look at the popular vote count, Ashton. 83.08 million for Reagan and 81.10 million for Lincoln. That's less than 2 million difference. It was close. And if Lincoln could have secured some of those other states like Florida and some of the other swing states, he could have had a chance to win. But no, Reagan's conservatism, Reagan's Reaganomics kind of pulls out and beats Abraham Lincoln in a big matchup.
Yes, Andy. I just generally think Reagan has performed so well. Even when he lost, it was a very close loss. Lincoln, he was leading his conference before he lost this game. Um, Eisenhower now takes that standing after this loss. I think Lincoln is going to be a force to be reckoned with. He got 213 electoral votes with 81 million votes. That's a very, very weird correlation right there, and I don't think you'll see that often.
No, not at all. Lincoln is one of the best candidates we have. Him beating JFK in our first primetime matchup in week one was huge. Maybe he understood Reagan a little bit, but he will definitely be back and with a passion. All right, guys, before we get into our major matchup, marquee matchup of tonight, let's go ahead and throw up those current standings.
Yes, Andy. So far, going into week three primetime matchup, we only have one match left. And as you guys can see, right now, some conferences are doing really good on the RNC side, and the DNC side is having some conference struggles. Right now, there's only two people in the DNC side with two wins. That is not good at all. And on the RNC side, you have five candidates with two wins. So the RNC side right now looks like they're really, really stacked. They're winning a lot of those D versus R matchups early on in the season. As it comes to these two candidates right now, both come into this primetime matchup really needing a win. They're both 0-1. They're both lost their first division matchups, so they really need that win for their record and kind of the rebound off of a tough first 3 weeks. Andy, right now the RNC South, which George Bush is in, looks scary good. You have Lincoln and Ike both were undefeated going into this week. And Ike has a bye week, so he doesn't have to play. But George Bush has to play catch up. I mean, FDR has some room because both Truman and JFK already have losses on their record. But really, George Bush really needs this win.
I 100% agree with you, Ashton. W. Bush is so much more desperate and in need of a win. Because, like you said, look at the RNC South. Both of his division leaders have 2 wins or more on him, and have at least a win in Lincoln's case divisionally. When he beat Bush. So if Bush wants any chance to compete in this RNC South, he has to beat FDR. On the flip side, FDR gets a win here. They're all tied, but JFK has a tiebreaker, and Truman has a tiebreaker over him due to them having better divisional records. But he'll still be in it if he gets the win, or even if he gets the loss. 0-2 does not eliminate him from that DNC North, who's looking kind of a little bit more weaker than we thought,
Mhm.
with JFK only being 1-1 so far. But you look at these standings, like you said, the DNC is just not struggling a little bit more than the RNC. They do have heavy hitters in Carter and Obama, but I just don't think they match up well against the Eisenhowers and the Reagans and the Teddys of the RNC. But it'll be interesting, to say the least.
All right, Andy. We're gonna go ahead and start. Andy, this is definitely a interesting matchup for both of these guys. Like we said in our preview, they both really need a win. They're both winless so far. Um, I don't know. I feel like I just have a weird feeling George Bush is gonna pull off this victory. I mean, his friendliness. I mean, FDR is a titan of politics in the 40s, but in modern day, we don't know how that translates.
I got actually the opposite. I got FDR winning this matchup. I think he's got the key ingredients to get those some of those swing states away from Bush that he just doesn't have. But we're gonna see as this game keeps getting going. All the way, we're already on in the early stages of the weeks. You're not seeing too much differential other than, you see Bush up there getting almost all the swing states, all the Rust Belt states in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, but it's early, so
48 to 41% in the popular vote, Andy. That is a bad margin to be at as the Democrat right now.
we'll see. FDR has that stamina problem that we saw in his candidacy. So if he does not get his states back that he's losing, and it looks like in a kind of a flood of red coming across this country, he's gonna lose. But we still got plenty of time. We still got VPs to look out for. So anything can happen this close, this early in the game.
Yeah, it's we've seen candidates get in a hole and come back. You can see there he just recovered a little bit from his early deficit, and wow, Andy, this is looking bad right now for FDR. We could be seeing it it just looks really bad for FDR right now. He's losing Oregon. He has to win Oregon. I mean,
I don't know, FDR slowly trying to turn the tides. As you can see, it's more of a 46-44 now. So he's cutting that gap. He's got Michigan. He's got Pennsylvania solid blue. And he's battling for Florida. So he gets all those three states and keeps the ones that he should keep. He has the win.
hmm yeah, I agree. He definitely has to win Florida and Pennsylvania if he wants to lose one or two of those northwestern states that are typically Democratic. But like Bush is just keeping the South super red right now. He's focusing on these core states. Um, as you can see right now, Pennsylvania is a 40-47, a perfect tie. Florida is leaning towards Bush a little bit more. Um,
I think it just goes to test. You look at FDR's, and he's looking at his policies that he's passing right now. It's very, very harsh for the environmental side. So states like Florida, even though they have the environmental issues there, they don't like intense environmental policies, which is not what you need when you need a big state like Florida to go in your favor.
Wow, you have now Oregon going bright red. That
Mm.
is, and you don't see single red state where, FDR is even attempting to pick off.
FDR is just going super extreme liberalism here because you're seeing another assault weapons ban we just saw a few seconds ago. It's causing kind of the opposite effect of what you want when you need these states to go in your favor. He's really playing just to the states he already has, and you can't do that when you're trying to win.
No, I definitely agree with you, Andy. For some reason, I feel like George W. Bush is going towards the middle and FDR is going towards the super left. And that's having the counteract of just sailing up these solid red states and allowing Bush to focus on the swing states more.
That's a
Now,
good gift for FDR getting Pennsylvania back, but he
mhm,
needs to keep working. He's got enough time to come back in this matchup, but he has to start turning it around now. He needs to go
Bush
back to
is
the Northwest.
leading in Jersey.
Jeez.
That's not a good sign. You gotta pick off Jersey. Yeah, Andy, this is going to be. If somehow FDR wins this, I will be shocked.
That pro life helped a little bit for FDR, but not enough. He needs to keep going
There,
because you
there
see a
is. If
lot
he
of
can
pain.
pick off all the swing states, Andy, this can be a close game. But everything has to go his direction. So we're gonna go ahead and stop this on the first week before the results come in. This is a terrible map for FDR.
Yeah.
Oh,
We only
awful
see, let's
map.
see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 solid blue, eight with Hawaii, eight solid blue states. That's awful for a chance to even win. And he's not leading in any of the swing states except for Minnesota.
He's leading in Florida. Um,
within a
he's losing in North Carolina. He's losing in Wisconsin. He's losing in Nevada, and he's losing in Washington. Um, Connecticut. It looks like he'll pick off Maine, New Hampshire, but man, it's like he doesn't have a chance in any of these states.
It
Yeah,
looks like George.
Andy.
It looks like George W. Bush's strategery is taking the upper hand so far, and it's looking unless
Oh, he just flipped Florida.
that's
That
not going to be enough, Ashton. It just will not be enough. He will pick off Florida, but that's not going to be enough to get this win. You look at the
ooh.
popular vote count, 51-48 going into election day. Unless things
Uh
change, it's definitely
New
going to be a Bush victory here.
New Jersey and Pennsylvania is a backbreaker for FDR. That's a backbreaker. He had to win both of those really. Florida, that's interesting.
It's not enough, Ashton. We've seen this before. You lose New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Florida
Uh,
might save you, but it's not enough unless he flips every single state in his favor. And losing Michigan basically seals the deal.
yeah. Yeah, it looks like um Bush is going to come off with a solid win and he'll get it after Texas right here.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, complete domination. It was close enough, but still, George W. Bush needed that victory in that RNC South division to stay competitive, and he did what needed to be done. He was more desperate. He wins all the Northwest states, the entire West Coast outside of Hawaii, if you count that, and California, all go to Bush. Not good for Roosevelt, getting under 200 electoral votes and losing to baby Bush.
Yeah, George Bush not only he kind of doesn't win the popular vote by a whole large amount, but he still wins it 78 to 74. Wow, Andy, that was definitely a that definitely was a solid matchup between those two. But overall, George Bush really just I think that's the theme of this week. He once he got the lead, he kept it for the most part. Maybe in the middle, it looked like FDR was gonna try to make it competitive, but going into the last week of the race, it was pretty clear who was gonna win. Um, there wasn't any doubt in either of our minds. It looks like my pick, FDR, did a really, or not FDR, but George Bush did a really good job just winning all those big swing states. I mean, FDR won Florida. That's a good thing, but it shows you if you're gonna win Florida, you still have to keep all your core states, and he couldn't do that.
100% Ashton. Basically, after the second week, it looks like Bush just attacked, and basically got the lead in states. And you look at FDR, he kind of just took kind of a step back and let it all happen and tried to play catch up through the entire game. And there wasn't enough time for him to come back. Bush gets a very solid win, and that is the way it goes sometimes. Even though you look like the favored candidate, you can still lose a close game like that. All right, guys, thank you for joining us for week 3 of Presidential Smackdown. We've seen some crazy wins, and we saw George W. Bush winning our prime time game tonight. Thank you for joining us. Next week, come back because we have another big time game as the Peanut Farmer, undefeated #1 seed, Jimmy Carter, go at home, takes on his Republican counterpart, also a #1 seed in his own right, 2-1 Teddy Roosevelt. It's going to be a big time game. A lot of playoff implications in this game as we're getting closer and closer to that midway point. So come back, keep sticking around. Hit that like button if you like what we've been doing here. We're having a lot of fun. We hope you guys are enjoying it too. Stay safe out there, guys, and we'll see you next week.